The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NBA.
The latest on Tyrese Maxey.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast.
The news nobody wanted to hear comes out today, the latest on Tyrese Maxey. The 76ers last night falling to the Clippers in a very rough second half, and they're tied for the worst in the NBA. We cannot have anything nice here in Philadelphia. That is what it is coming out to be. So Tyrese Maxey, last night, he goes out early in the game, does not come back to return due to the hamstring. Keith, we just got updates on what this means for him and for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things they're going to do further evaluation. But typically when you do further evaluation, that typically confirms what you already have, right? So you're getting a second opinion. But the expectation is that he's going to miss a couple weeks. And the thing is, you know, they're saying he has hamstring tightness, but typically that's a hamstring strain. The thing is, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, Maxey played the entire third quarter. He shot the ball 0 for 3, 0 for 2 on 3-pointers. But it's one of those things where, you know, you look at it and, you know, you feel the tightness, you feel the soreness, whatever it is, and then you just shut them down. But in regards, what does it mean for the 76ers? You know, it's a tough spot. I mean, we're looking at it, a guy who, you know, has been providing much of the offense. Yeah. You're looking at it where now you're saying you have Paul George, who probably going to be he is going to be the only all-star, so to speak, playing for the Sixers tomorrow against the Lakers. And then you don't have Joel Embiid coming back until Tuesday. So you're going to have Maxey out. So they never had a full team. They just never had a full team. And it just, when we thought they were getting ready to, they're not. And these are one of those injuries that you can't rush a player back. You have to basically take your time, go through things, make sure he's 100%. Because as we found out last year with Nico Batum, you come back too early, the next thing you know, you're going to be on the shelf a couple more weeks.
My takeaway right now is that the Philadelphia 76ers are in trouble, and I know that people might say that's an overreaction, but the injury bug is clearly hitting this locker room in Philadelphia. And as you alluded to, just as you thought this team was going to get back fully healthy with everybody, now Tyrese Maxey is out for some time. And this was my biggest worry with him coming in and not having Paul George and Joel Embiid, the amount of minutes, the pressure on him, what he's going to have to play. If he gets injured, it's going to be a real problem. And now you're looking at that real problem. So now you're saying, okay, well, Paul George just came back from injury. You know, he's trying to get better and better with the chemistry of the team. That chemistry now completely is going to be different in this next game without Tyrese Maxey. Not only that, you're asking Paul George to now be that guy to play a ton of minutes and being able to develop that offensive game plan because you don't have Tyrese Maxey now and you still don't have Joel Embiid for at least 2 more games. So this is trouble to me right now, and you don't want to rush Tyrese Maxey back, and I hope that he is okay. But you look at the Philadelphia 76ers and you say, what else could go wrong? And we always have said Tyrese Maxey cannot go down. It's happening now. It's still early in the season, and I understand that there's time to develop from this and be able to get a better record. But it just has been such a rough start for this team. And this on top of it, oh boy, this is just not a fun time right now for anybody watching this team. It's going to be tough. And I think Paul George having that much pressure on him and having to play that many minutes, that's going to be tough on a guy that's a veteran coming into this league, not necessarily in his prime of prime anymore. You don't want PG to get more injured too.
Yeah, I mean, I think PG will be fine. You know, no, it is what it is. Like, you know, the 76ers have to realize that it's a lot of expectations, and this might not be it. Like, this might not be the year, at least for the early goings, right? So Because the thing about PG, he's a type of guy, he's a veteran dude, and he realized like, hey, I'm not coming back until I'm ready, until I'm 100% ready. And then he came back. But yeah, he's going to have to carry the load. Paul George came here thinking he was going to be a third option or whatever. But right now, he's going about to be the point forward. He's going to be the face of the team tomorrow and then also on Sunday. So, it's one of those things where it's just a doom and gloom right now for the Sixers.
It's a really tough situation. That's the best way to put it. And yesterday I was all positive saying, oh, the Sixers are going to beat the Clippers. That clearly did not happen. We'll break that down in a little bit. But now this comes out and it's like, oh boy, here we go again. Consistently, the injuries happening in Philadelphia. So Nick Nurse is clearly going to have to continue to go after these rotations, figure out what works. And I'm going to see who is going to step up in terms of what we want to look at. So right now, do you start Kyle Lowry? Do you start a guy that's also a veteran that's not in his prime? Is that who you're looking at to start? Does Jared McCain get more minutes off the bench, but then there's more pressure coming towards him and he might get exposed defensively? You're looking at a really interesting turn of events. And then we've also touched on the Sixers do have a back-to-back coming up when Joel Embiid does come back. If Paul George and Joel don't play, this team has no chance of winning at all without Tyrese Maxey being on the court. So there's a lot of things.
This team has no chance of winning a lot of games right about now. I mean,
it's
I'm
bad.
just going to be real with you. Even if Paul George and Tyrese Maxey played, it would be a major upset for them to beat the Knicks.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And that winning $5 bet could be on an early Week 11 line in the NFL. There's a theory that teams get a bump from firing a coach, but what happens when they fire a coach and trade one of their best players? FanDuel is kind of buying the fired coach hype, as it feels like the New Orleans Saints aren't as much of an underdog as you might expect to the Atlanta Falcons. The game is in New Orleans, but the FanDuel has the Falcons favored by 3.5 points. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
So I'm not trying to say, it's kind of final word on this rotation, hypothetical rotation changes, like what can you do? I think ultimately a couple things need to happen. They need a baseline of production from the bench, like something that is just like, okay, it's not good. You're not going to want to compare it to 75% of the benches around the league where you get better scoring this over, but like you can put people out there. They will take shots. They will occasionally make a shot. Gabe Vincent goes from being a real negative offensively, the amount when he is shooting a lot, they're not going in, to normal, not great, or neutral or something. Max Christie gets somewhere closer to the guy that, people were hoping, including the Lakers, especially the Lakers, we're hoping he'd be, this season. You get something closer to that. That needs to happen. And then to make it so you are not quite as focused on maybe some of the shortcomings, a guy like D'Lo, who, when you use, what is he shooting, like 30-something% right now? Like that is not tolerable for a team like this from a player of his caliber. Reeves, everybody's got to be better, but like there are certain things, it'd be better if he was turning the ball over a little bit more than he has been, but he was shooting 44% from 3-point range. I'd make that trade. They can't afford that specifically from him because of his role in the offense. So I would give what they've got a little bit more time because I don't trust the people that would end up in the starting lineup. I don't think that'll help. And maybe you jimmy around with when people are coming in and out of games. That's probably how I would do it. But a lot of things need to improve in both the bench and the.
Yeah, I'm not even lobbying for a change. I'm just saying the idea that it would happen is not out of the question because things as currently constructed are not working.
Yeah, I would agree. So you were down in El Segundo on Thursday, talking to the G Leaguers. It's their second day of practice or training camp or whatever it is, and relevant in part because Bronny, the Lakers announced talked about the training plan. He was sent down to the G League South Bay Lakers and is going to be playing home games with them and then presumably traveling with team. So kind of an interesting way that they're doing it for now.
Yeah. For now should be stressed. We'll see how it goes moving forward, but Bronny's G League season will begin Saturday when the South Bay Lakers have their first game. I was down in El Segundo for this because I had a sit down with Zach Guthrie, the new South Bay Lakers coach. It's going to be on Lakers Talk this coming Tuesday, 7:10. I found him a very bright guy. He is very excited at this opportunity to be coaching the team at a time when they are really leaning into development. He also, too, coached JJ Redick as an assistant for half a season in Orlando and half a season in Dallas. So he had a bit of a rapport with JJ heading into this. There are a few items that I wanted to get to in terms of most of the players are made available, and I asked some questions, but just because we could all use a little positivity with the Lakers right now, this clip of Quincy Oliveri, when I asked him just what it's been like for him right now, in particular with the world kind of just smiling for him.
There have been a lot of people over the last few weeks who've really enjoyed this moment for you. It's been covered on ESPN, things like
crazy.
That. What's that been like for you, just to see people enjoy this for you?
It's crazy. It's a lot of people that have been reaching out just saying that I'm like real genuine, and I don't even know how to respond to that because I just feel like I'm being myself, but my dad talk about it. My grandma actually just texted me last night when I showed her my new necklace. I have my family's name across my neck on my new gold chain, and she said, "What's my celebrity relative doing?" I'm like, "Mama, I'm just playing a video game like what I always do." So it's honestly surreal because I'm still the same person without the media coverage. It just happens to be that I gained like 60,000 followers and I have all this attention now, but it's honestly, it's insane.
People seem happy for you.
Yeah, they are, and I appreciate that, but that doesn't define who I am as a person because at the end of the day, I still have to handle my business. It's not like the Lakers are listening to the media, the coaches aren't listening to the media. It's all about what do I do every day to put myself into a position to succeed.
He also, both before the media scrum started and then after it ended, went up to all of us, shook our hands. Like, I'm telling you, this kid is so easy to root for and so likable. It's funny too, like somebody made a joke, like, in talking with us, "Oh, you're just looking to steal our jobs later." And he's like, "I am." And it turns out, like, I guess his dad growing up was in media, and like did a similar type job or was involved in media. He didn't specify what, but like, he is really easy to root for. And you can just see how much this opportunity means to him. And, when I talked to Zach Guthrie about Oliveri, like everyone who talks about him, just said, hell of a person. And you just like being around him.
I'm really looking forward to when we get to see him at the Crypt in those couple times a year that the Memphis Grizzlies visit. So we can really see how he's developed. Because that seems to be where all two-way players.
Easy.
I feel like if he were like a true point guard, Bronny would probably not be traveling. Like,
I don't know.
I think if the need was there, they'd find a way. He's probably somebody they feel as confident in to do stuff. The need's just not there, at least not yet.
Speaking of point guards, though, I asked Jalen Hood-Schifino. Everybody knows his third-year option was not picked up by the team, which is, it might start becoming a little less uncommon. You pointed this out to me, Brian. We were talking offline. Just
in apron world, where the punitive taxes and all these other things for players that I think, it used to be just sort of, all right, well, of course you'd pick up a $4 million option for your first round pick from 2 years ago. But now, and there were, I think we were 6 players from that class that did not have their contracts picked up, or the options in their contracts picked up.
But he talked before about before I asked him this question, he talked about he's really realizing the importance of he needs to be more vocal, period. He needs to be more of a vocal leader. It's not just enough to try to lead by example or just work hard. As a point guard, that's what you're supposed to do. He is aware that he has been written off in perception. And I asked him, just as a professional, very young in your career, what is it like for you to have this type of uncertainty, with a third-year option not getting picked up? And he said, quote, it happened. So for me, I just got to continue to get better. There's still an opportunity to get better, to learn, playing at the G League, big team or what, a big team or not, just opportunities will be there. So at the end of the day, for me, I just got to continue to take it day by day and take advantage of anything that comes my way. And I also asked him, where do you think you are in your development, given that you're young, you're learning a very hard position, and you've missed a lot of time? And he said, and this was this thing that really jumped out at me. He said, quote, "It's easy for me to try to beat myself up and how I've been playing. So I just staying positive, continue to put God first, and everything will align and work out where it's supposed to be." And he's like, I'm 21, I've had multiple surgeries. This is difficult. And I really feel for him, hearing him talk about this. This has to be extremely difficult for JHS.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time, as basketball fans, you just say, this guy sucks. This guy, he's a bust. He's, and to some degree, it comes with the gig. This is, what they sign up, but especially with younger players, and we've never been the types of hosts, writers, podcasters, radio people who really root against individual players, root for people to fail. It's just, I don't like doing that. I think it's karmically bad idea. It's none of it is good. But particularly with young players, you forget, this is what Jalen Hood-Schifino has been trying to work towards probably since he was 10, if maybe younger. And to get there, which is an enormous accomplishment, and instantly have it go as wrong as it has. And it's hard to picture a first couple of years of a player's career going as poorly as this one has. And he's a young guy, and he's just, when you hear somebody say it's really easy for me to beat myself up, it makes me think this is probably part of the reason the Lakers aren't having him travel. It's just go play. We need you to go play. We don't need you sitting on a bench as an emergency point guard is not going to do us any good. It's not going to do you any good. You need to go play. And I think to some degree too, we kind of need you to rehab your appeal.
Yeah.
Sure. If you go down there and play well, now you probably aren't going to cost, the $4 million from next year if somebody wants to sign you, re-sign you, if we trade you, whatever it might be. Go rehab go play, and we'll see what happens. It's just it's a bummer. It's a real bummer for guys like that, because he seems like a really solid person.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys work so hard to get to this place. And even as we evaluate them, and I'm not here to say Hood-Schifino has played great and this, whatever, but you do have to remember that these are young people who are at the bad end of a really difficult time.
I also asked Maxwell Lewis, because we've talked about before, sort of what his lane and his position is in the NBA has been frankly difficult to ascertain. And he talked about he's trying to work to just simplify everything that he does, make quick decisions on the court, break the habit of, kind of dribble jabbing too much with the ball, just do something quickly. But I asked him what he pictured, like his prototype in the NBA, if he could do that. And he mentioned early Mikal Bridges, and he said he's been watching a lot of film on him, I'm presuming in his Phoenix days. And he said he just keeps it simple, and he's really decisive. Now I feel later on down the line, I want to get back to what I feel like I can do, more of like a Rudy Gay, Paul George, maybe down those years. But right now I'm just trying to stick in the league and show what I can do. I mean, the other stuff is maybe getting ahead of themselves, but I like that he was very specific in the way he talked about Bridges.
We'll quit on this, but like, this is what a development program is supposed to do. It's supposed to help players identify both the skill that can get them into the NBA, but specifically can get them in the NBA in a way that'll help the Lakers. And it's not about turning all these guys into stars. It's turning them into viable NBA players. And if you can do that with players you sign on two-way contracts after the draft, it is a massive, massive win. And so the Lakers clearly have identified guys with NBA potential. Again, they're all playing in Memphis right now. They just need to do a better job of figuring out how they can actually hold on to some of these players that can have some value. That's both a talent identification thing. It's a talent identification. It's a player development thing, and then it's also a roster management thing. So you actually have room to use these guys if they do show potential.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And that winning $5 bet could be on an early Week 11 line in the NFL. There's a theory that teams get a bump from firing a coach, but what happens when they fire a coach and trade one of their best players? FanDuel is kind of buying the fired coach hype, as it feels like the New Orleans Saints aren't as much of an underdog as you might expect to the Atlanta Falcons. The game is in New Orleans, but the FanDuel has the Falcons favored by 3.5 points. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
After dropping 6 straight games, man, it feels good to be on this side of it. The Bucks finally get a win.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast.
Frank, the Bucks were running their game tonight. Finally, a victory. Had some shades in the first half there of that last Jazz Bucks game in Milwaukee when the Jazz were going crazy from 3. They were also going crazy from 3 in this game. This season, the Jazz averaged 11 made threes per game. They had 14 in the first half against the Bucks in this particular game. But luckily, they only finished the game making 13 or 17 of them in total. They went 3 of 15 in the second half, but the Bucks were finally able to get a win. So let's just start here, Frank. How are you feeling? This feeling of victory being back on your shoulders after a Bucks dominant win in the second half there.
I mean, it's got to be the best feeling of a win over a bad team that probably I can recall feeling, in quite some time. The Bucks now have 2 wins. They have beaten the 2 worst teams in basketball, the Sixers and the Bucks. Or Sixers. Bucks were one of the worst teams. We're tied for the worst record in basketball, but and now the Jazz. So let's just say not exactly the kind of game that you start showing as a signature win of why this team can contend for a championship. But I think to me the big story was we talked last game about the silver lining of the Cleveland game in Cleveland was the young guys, specifically Andre Jackson and particular AJ Green, and then asking the question, can those guys stack games? Can they become more consistent to the point where you can rely on them every night to do the things that we know that they're capable of doing, which are very diverse between the 2 of those guys. And I think when I think about this game, I think of Andre, and especially that first quarter, the Jazz hit 3 threes very quickly. but the Bucks kind of took those shots, and Andre Jackson gets a steal, breakaway dunk to start. Has another play where he gets they get a fast break. He takes the pass from, I think it was Dame, and dunks in transition. He has 4 steals on the night, and I felt like his just the defensive energy and his lateral movement and ability to keep ball handlers in front of him is just like so far beyond like anybody else on the team, that even though there wasn't like the Jazz are not a team you look at and be like, oh, they have like that single guy, like, oh, you got to stop Colin Sexton or bust, right? Like, it's not, the Jazz aren't quite like that, but just being able to put him at the point of attack and knowing that like he's going to make life difficult on the other team's lead ball handler, whatever, is just such a big thing. And obviously Gary Trent's been in a big shooting slump as well. Did not get out of that tonight. Very interesting how little Gary Trent played again tonight.
Doc did say after the game, part of that was because he had back spasms in the second half.
So yeah, and I was gonna say too, I mean, like Gary Trent seeing his minutes slashed, DeLon Wright DNPing, right?
Yeah.
Very notable given what we expected from those guys coming to the year. But look, I would just look at it as a positive in the sense that this is because Andre Jackson was doing what we wanted Andre Jackson to do. He was a big part of them jumping out to, I think it was 23-14 lead early. And look, they took those body blows from the Jazz, right? The Jazz did not just come in and, it felt like the first couple weeks of the season that the Bucks needed the other team to just suck it up from 3 for them to have a chance of winning. That's how they won in Philly. We said it at the time, like that was sort of papering over some rough aspects of that Philly win, like the offensive rebounding and things like that. But tonight to run into a team that shot it extremely well, that shot over 40% from 3 at 17 threes. Bucks also shot it well, 15 of 35. But to win a game going away when you didn't just have a big 3-point advantage, like that actually means you played good basketball in the year 2024. To beat a team by 23 points without a 3-point advantage means he did a lot of other things well. And we talked, a lot in the last couple of pods about the Bucks losing games on the margins, turning the ball over more than the other team, not getting as many offensive rebounds as the other team, even though their defensive rebounding has gotten better. They just do not generate second chances themselves.
Right.
And so just, it's like if you just don't give yourself as many opportunities, your margin of error is lower. And tonight it felt like they kind of turned that on their head. I mean, 13 steals. I think I don't know what the fast break points ended up when. I saw at one point it was like 34 to not very much.
39 fast break points for the Bucks tonight.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy. And I think it started with Andre doing the things that we mentioned earlier that he was doing, and then of course just a whole lot of Giannis Antetokounmpo just being in absolute attack mode whenever he got the ball. And then the last thing I'd call out just in terms of like flow of the game, we talk about Andre in the first quarter helping them get off to the fast start. Utah obviously comes back, hits a bunch of threes. Obviously they have a really good run in the third quarter with Dame and Giannis leading that and extending the lead, taking a back and forth game and building a double-digit lead. But I thought going into the fourth quarter, I was joking with Eric Name, our friend from The Athletic. We were, kind of joking via text, and I said like, oh boy, here comes the Jazz 10-0 run here with the Bucks up 11 going to the fourth quarter, right? Like this is just the way it's been. And to their credit, like the Bucks did not do that. And AJ Green, I want to give AJ Green a shout out. Both ends, first possession, he covered off, closed out on his man in the corner, forced a turnover on the first possession for the Jazz. I think he had a steal I'm trying to remember what it was. He had 2 good defensive possessions. I'm trying to remember what the other one. I think he may have had a steal then a few possessions later. And then he hits a couple threes. And, again, talking about stacking wins and stacking performances. Well, the big guns, Giannis and Dame, they are stacking performances. We'll talk about them, I'm sure. But those young guys, Andre and AJ in particular, they stack performances as well. And, with some of the veterans struggling, we saw a little bit of life from Bobby Portis again tonight as well. But if those guys are going to do the stuff that we've seen the last 2 games with some regularity, AJ's not going to hit 7 threes every game. But if those guys are going to come in and give you, those shots in the arm on both ends, then all of a sudden, like you can absorb veterans having bad shooting nights or the other team hitting 17 threes. So yeah, I think again, like it's sad to be like, oh, the best performance of the Bucks season. Doc finally got that like 48-minute sustained effort against the freaking Jazz. But you got to start somewhere. And like, I think we're all sick of like trying to find silver linings in losses to Cleveland. So going into the first night of a back-to-back where you have to go to MSG tomorrow night, Giannis was dinged up. I mean, this is about as close to a must-win as you're going to find 2 weeks into a season. And with New York and Boston coming up on the calendar, you desperately needed to bank a win tonight, and to do it in ultimately convincing fashion. I mean, I'm sure just a lot of relief and just happiness and satisfaction on that locker room, and they can appreciate it for about 2 hours, and then they got to get on a plane and go to New York. But yeah, at least for a day, Camille, Bucks fans, we can at least feel okay about our team and some optimism that maybe this team can still maybe figure something out. But again, they got a hole to dig out of, and they took their first shovel of dirt and threw it out of the ditch today.
Yeah, I mean, to everything that you said, I definitely agree. I feel like Andre Jackson Jr. really came in and provided a needed level of energy for the Bucks, where it was like his effort was contagious in certain aspects. The fact that he had 4 steals, Dame had 4 steals tonight as well, just active hands. I want to also shout out Taurean Prince, because there were quite a few possessions between Andre Jackson Jr. and Taurean Prince where they're switching and they're just causing havoc on Colin Sexton or whoever it is that they are trying to hound at the point of attack. So he had some solid defensive minutes as well. And to your point about the Bucks just having a joke with Eric of like, hey, we're heading into the fourth. Here comes that Jazz run. Like, we've gotten used to it, but we saw this Bucks team down 4 at halftime outscore the Jazz 66-39 to finish the game. They went plus 27 in the third and fourth quarters combined. And again, you had Giannis and Dame combining for 65 points. And the way that the two of them were playing off of each other, where especially in the third quarter, they just kind of were like, hey, look, we're going to take off for a bit. If we get double teamed or we can't get the shot off, we're going to pass the ball around. But like, we're looking for our shot and we're going to be aggressive with it.